Okay, welcome everybody to our Creator Space workshop. Today is photography, storytelling techniques with Tjalling Halbertsma. And want to thank all of our partners in making this project happen. So my name is Tom Sternad. I'm the lead digital artist for this project. And so our partners, we have the Canada Council for the Arts, and we have our library partners. So the Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, and Wasaga Beach Public Library. I put some links to information, our emails, so that you can contact Tjalling, look at his website as well, and also some info on the accessing the Canon 6D camera that you can get from the Blue Mountains Public Library and shortly from the Wasaga Beach Public Library. So stay tuned. You can go to our website and there's a lot of information there. I also put a direct link to our YouTube channel that has all our photography workshops there. So that's available as well. So you can, all that information's there. So we are on Crowdcast. At the end of this, you can rewatch this segment. So the video's there, you can replay it. And we'll also be posting this to YouTube in the coming days. So yeah, that's, again, thanks for joining us. And here, without any further ado, I'm gonna pass it over to Tjalling. Here we go.
Hey, hello there. Good morning to you, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Storytelling. I hope you're doing all well, considering the circumstances of the COVID and staying at home, especially. We know it here in Canada, but I don't know where you're from. Let us know where you're from. Would be very interesting. But on a good note is here is a free education lesson. Which is actually fantastic, that you just have to log on and you can watch somebody teach you something. All right, here we go. My name is, by the way, Tjalling Halbertsma. I'm a professional photographer here in Collingwood, Ontario. And one of the things that I love very much about photography is storytelling. So we have some slides here. I made a nice presentation. We go through it. Don't forget, if you have questions, just put it in the chat and then Tom will give it to me. All right, storytelling. I'll give a second here to so you can look at the image. All right, good, welcome. Anyway, stories are the most interesting part of photography, according to me. Let's dive deeper into this subject. Tom, are you seeing the slides? Just have to check with Tom.
I'm not actually seeing the slide. If you can just restart that for us.
Okay, yeah, just a second, guys. Because I'm here and Tom is somewhere else. Okay, let's try that again, Tom. Whoop. I guess you see it now, right?
Yes, we see it.
There we go. Okay, so technique. Story. I just give a few words just to for you to remember what story actually is. Story, a tale, a chronicle, history, a description, depiction, record, portrayal. There are many names for it. So don't get stuck into one single idea. There are many different angles and many different ways to do this. Stories are, of course, perfect for books, for film. We're all happy with our live streaming on TV, like Netflix. But it's also great for photography, and we know it. Good. When I started my photography career, and I was actually at the Georgian College here in Canada, in the beginning they said every photo has a story. Now, what does it actually mean? I took it very literally, and I was looking at the photo and was trying to decipher what was the story in the photo. Okay, you see somebody with a football, you see somebody running, but what is actually the story? Well, it's important to know, should the story be in the photo? Could you decipher it? Could you distract the story from what you see? Could you analyze the photo or see what kind of reaction it gives to you? Or should the story be everything that led up to this photo? Let's say you have a beautiful photo of a racing car, and the race car has a lot of victories, had a lot of victories, and it was being sold for 1 million and for 2 million and then for 5 million and then for 30 million. That's a story, right? So the question is like, what is actually important in the story of the photo? Well, I'm going to show you here with two paintings. The reason why I do the paintings is because probably everyone has seen it, and paintings were, let's say, before photos, so it has a way longer history. Well, this painting is The Raft of Medusa, made by Géricault, Theodore Géricault. It's a story, and the one who painted this knew exactly how the story was. It was a warship, it sunk, and the survivors, there were like 150, a few of them survived and they were put on a raft. And I think there was another boat and they didn't take them in, so they hardly survived. He knew exactly what the story was and made the painting. Or it's like you can do it the same with the photo. The next slide. Yeah, here we go. Next slide. Everybody knows this painting, but the actual narrative is unknown. They have ideas, there are suggestions, they expected it could be a certain person, but it's still a kind of a mystery. So in a way, what I'm trying to tell her is it doesn't matter what you put in the photo. If it's the history before the photo or you put it all in the photo, it doesn't matter. It's a choice. It's a choice. Okay, so here we go. I have to do something with the frame and then come back to it. Stories. Life itself is one big story. And your life is also a big story. Whether it's a good story or not a good story, a wonderful story or a story filled with kind of pain or suffering, it is a story. If you look at it from 10 years or 20 years from now, maybe 50 years, you can see the highlights, the lows, you can see if you were driven, if you changed your mind, if you know. So what I'm trying to say here is that your life is a story. So we are very much distracted these days by televisions and movies and Netflix. It's very easy to sit down on the couch and let the story come to you. It's not the best thing for your own creativity. I love watching movies, but if I need to create, I kind of shut things off. Tabloids, newspapers, it's a constant overflow of many narratives. But take all that away, all the news, all the television, all the movies, and all the shows that you're watching. If you take that all away, whatever is left is actually your story, is the life you're in, and the things that you are doing, the things that you are thinking, believing, and experiencing. And above all, your story is unique. And I like to emphasize that because a lot of people often think, oh, yeah, I don't know what to say. And you have a lot to say because your story is unique. if you don't bring it out, people cannot see it as a story. People cannot see it as something. So you can use your own life and your own experiences as a fantastic inspiration for your stories. Okay. Yeah, we're back with stories or narratives are within reach. What I want to say is that they are everywhere, and you can get inspiration from anything from fantasy to your own experiences, to looking at your community or the life you're living in. So my suggestion is, if you want to make some stories for yourself, take a step back, unplug yourself from social media and all the input, TV, and see what's going on. See what keeps you busy. What keeps you busy today is probably not what keeps you busy over a year or over 5 years. So this is important for you. If you're, let's say, you're done with high school and you go to university, that's a whole new chapter. All kind of things going on. You think, yeah, it's normal, but it's different than high school, and it's different than elementary school. And when you're 40 or 50, it's also different. You go through all kind of different phases. So the story that you want to write or make is within reach. You don't have to go to the moon to make a fantastic story. Well, this is an example from my life. This is me and my lovely wife. We traveled a lot. We moved also a lot of times house, and one of the characteristic things from moving house is that you have to go through all your stuff again. And every time we think like, oh my God, why do we have so much? Why do we have this? So every time we move, we shred a whole lot of stuff. We just give it away or sell it or whatever. Anyway, leave it behind. And in the end, what remains is basically you and your partner, in this case, and the two candles are standing for the bright light that we are following on our path. The person in the back sitting there was representing the thinker. So that's open for interpretation, by the way. That there's no specific one type of goal for that. But it was just a kind of between organized and an impulse photo. And actually, it's quite a good, what do you say that? Representation of my life. Okay, this very interesting man is Stephen White. He is an artist, he is a teacher, and he is a wand maker. He loves the world of Harry Potter, and he has a business in making wands. So he sells them really all over the world. They're very, very nicely made, put in a box with telling what kind of wood it is and everything. And I love that so much that I said, you know what, you want me to be the wizard model? And I said, yeah, sure. So I made a photo of him in a costume. And this is exactly what fitted so well. So I thought it was a real beautiful story. Here we have these images by Peter Strengths, an old teacher of mine. I invited him to come to shoot the World Cup ski cross. And he was on that spot that when they were jumping, one person jumped too hard, too fast, and she couldn't handle it anymore and just smacked right down on her face. And her competition, the Canadian lady here, she just finished first. But he was there on the right time and the right moment. These things you cannot really plan. You can arrange to stand on a good spot, but these things happen or they don't happen in a thing like this. Here we have, there we go. Here we have 3 photos of a bigger project. I will show you the project later on. And every person in that photo is representing something. So the man with the watch was like, he was really about time, about business and fast, and we're going to move forward and no time for nonsense. We got to move on. Then the person in the white jacket with the money, he represented the greed. And the lady in the right below, she represented the traveler. I only took a part of it. I did a full body photography shot from them. This is only a small part of them. But yeah, different colors also. Look at the colors on their face. The traveler has a lot of, sunshine, a colored skin. But the man with the watch, he kind of life sucked out of him. So these are kind of things that you can use for your photography. All right. Here we go. Steinar Christensen is a photographer who photographs a lot of human condition, but without the humans. So you see things and then you wonder by yourself, hey, how did that happen? Or what's kind of the story here? And I just want to show you, in comparison with the other photos that I showed you already, everybody has a different style. And everybody finds comfort in a certain style. This is a photo by Tamas Dezo. You should see his work. He made a photo here, which is kind of obvious. Once there was a village, but then there was a dam, and the village disappeared. So it's all underwater. And that's the story. And maybe the story is way, way bigger. All right. If you like to tell a story, here are a few ingredients. Okay, here we go. Yeah, here we go. So your intention is very important, your passion. If you don't have an intention or a passion, it's very hard to follow the red line through the story, to get it done, to overcome obstacles. Experiences, you have more experiences than you think, so you can use them in your photography. Another part is view a story from different angles. When you want to tell a story, it's not always clear for other people what you mean. Because you know everything, you take a few parts out of it and you put it together, but what is the context? So if you try to find it from, look at from other angles, you will probably help yourself to tell the story just a little bit different and with more clarity for other people. Embellish, why not? Embellish is because now a photo is often smaller than real life. So this little 2D product that you make, something has got to come out of it. So you have to give it a little bit of a juice, a little bit of a punch to get that photo working. Planning and techniques. So passion and intention. I see it as the invisible motor. Think of a famous painter whose work is still admired. For example, Da Vinci, Rembrandt, Monet. They had an incredible passion, and that's visible and you can feel it in their work. And that's why it's still popular, probably. Think of music made by artists who were unstoppable despite many obstacles. You probably know yourself, a lot of people, but I saw not too long ago a documentary how the Beatles started and how their popularity grew. It was insane. It was just insane. And you got to be really stable and strong to, to go through the whole landscape of ups and downs and resistance. And yeah, think of your own moments when you were passionate about something. There's this drive, there's this enormous feeling. You want to do something, you can conquer the mountains. So use your own passion. Okay, slidey. Okay, experiences, very important, because that gives you your own, makes you unique. They create a reference for what you want to create. So if you don't have any experience, you have no idea if the idea that you're putting out has any value or understanding. So use your own experience. Even if you embellish them, it's a strong tool. People often see if your story is based on experience or just made out of thin air, which is true. If something is really deeply felt, then somebody knows what you were talking about. If it's like, oh, whatever, then it doesn't stick to you. Experience are the blood running through the veins of your story. Well, that sounds really, really nice, but it's true. It's kind of the blood, but it's also the skeleton. It holds the whole story up there. Okay, different angles. Here we go. So with different angles is different opinions, different way people see things, different opinions, different experience, actually. Everybody has a different experience, although we think that everybody has the same kind of feeling. It's not. Sometimes you forget that the story needs clarity. So, as I said before, you know the details, but does your audience knows it? See if your story, if you can get it from different angles through different people's eyes. It might help you to make your story more complete. Embellish. Embellish will help you to get the message across. You need to juice it up a little bit. Make it clear and visible through embellishment. But it's not a rule. I've seen films and photos, including my own photos. They were not embellished and had like a more of a minimalism, introvert look and feel. And that's also a strong thing. Technique. Okay, technique, here we go. So don't underestimate how you handle the technical part. Your camera, how it works, the equipment. Because if you are creating and you are in your creative process and executing your plan, it's horrible to be constantly stopped because it's not working or whatever. It stops the flow. Like right now, we have a little bit of an issue with the feed. So I have to go back and forth of the slides, making sure that you see the slides that I see right here live. It's a bit of a nuisance, but I'm not too bothered actually. So make sure you are prepared and ready. That really helps you, because when you prepare and you execute your plan, then at least you know what you're going to do. If you still have to find it out and your technical side is not up to par, then you are having a little bit of a trouble. If you want if you want to photograph your story, but you are hindered by the tech side, it's often frustrating. Well, that's very obvious. different narratives. Okay, here we go. This is one of my earlier Photoshop work. It's not brilliant, but I had a kind of a passion to do something. So I wanted to do something with a happy side, a sad side, light, dark, the contrast. So I took a room, photographed one person in three different modes, and then, it changed the room according to the mood. So you see one side is as warm light, you see all the gold stuff, and the other side is really drained out of joy and pleasure. And somebody is centered in the midst. So storytelling can happen in many different ways. You have journalism, documentary, fantasy, artistic, reflective, ... Your style. You can create your own style because it's unique. So here I have an example. All right, we have to do this like thing. So just to take one example, there were so many. This is Instagram of Brooke Shaden. She kind of created her own style, quite moody, but she tells a lot about her own life, her own struggles, her own ups and downs, and puts that in a photo. So she shares in words, but also in photos. So it gives the context. Try to look her up. Maybe you don't like it, maybe you do, but you can see she is quite creative, and she really uses her own life and her own experiences, whether they are happy or sad, in her work. Okay, other ways to create stories. Ta-da! So you can create stories in an impulsive, intuitive, raw, on the spot, step out and go and do something way, if you like. So without preparing anything, just make sure your camera and stuff is ready, your batteries are full, and then you go out and do something. And that creates a story. The other part, extreme, the opposite, is a very prepared execution of your photographs. So plan your work and work your plan. That's something that Peter Strength used to teach me, and I think it's a real good sentence. Plan your work, so make sure you're ready for everything, and then work your plan so that you don't get lost along the way. Because, for example, when I go to the studio and I have like 10 actors and I have lights and I have crew and lots of equipment and I need to have catering and all the kind of stuff, you might get lost. Maybe you get nervous, or you get, you lose your focus because there's a lot of things on your... I like to prepare myself very much, and then I step into that world with more confidence, and I thought about things that could go wrong. So I'm not like, oh my God, what is happening? I think like, yeah, that's possible. It could happen. Let's find a quick solution. So impulsive or being really prepared, it's both okay for stories. There's no right or wrong. It's just what is your way of working with it, and what you love to do. It's both good. All right, 2 examples here. Don't laugh. That's me. This me in lockdown. So basically, this was an impulsive kind of photograph. I was preparing for another lesson with Creative Space, and I did some testing the day before. Plan your work your plan. And I had to make sure that when the person was coming, that everything was sharp, the light was okay. So I did, I don't know, 10, 15 shots. And with one hand, I had a remote control. Later on, I stitched them all together, and this is kind of like, maybe you too, but sometimes you feel in lockdown like, oh, this is so boring, or can I go out? So have a little fun with it. Here we go again. Okay, so this image is looking a little bleak here, but you should see it in print, by the way. It's gigantic and it's beautiful. It's my work called The Gathering, Embellishment of the Mind. This took me about 6 months to really make it. And then with the Photoshop and everything, because I started with this and it grew along the way. This was a lot of planning and execution of my ideas. So this is the opposite. The other photo that you saw was more impulsive. This was really planned very much in advance, and then rent a studio, equipment, crew, the whole thing. Okay, here we go. So you can make one photo of a story, or you can make a series that tells your narrative. So put everything in one photo, or put everything divided over a series. I love series. To tell a whole story in one single photo is not easy. I've used series to tell a wider story. So try to do that. This, for example, food. So I made, this is from my Instagram, I made a whole series of food that I love. I think food is also beautiful to photograph. So yeah, I try to give expression to that. This is Canadian summers. I'm an immigrant here in Canada, and when I discovered that the summers here were just absolutely gorgeous and lovely, I used my camera to make a little story of that. So if I look back from this 20 years from now, I think like, oh my God, these summers were just amazing. But hopefully I'm still here. This is, oh, I gotta switch the slide here. Sorry, Tom, for these things. This is fall in Canada, especially Ontario. I mean, I live in a beautiful area, Simcoe and Grey Bruce. It's where I do my walks and go on the trails. Just going from fall into the first frosty winters is just incredibly amazing. So if you don't look at the total, but you look at details everywhere, it tells a story of the incredible diversity of fall. Techniques to help your stories. Okay, here we go. Okay, so besides the previous things that I mentioned, you have to use some techniques, some guidance. It's very, I hardly advise it. No, I advise you very much to look into that and then take your own opinion and be free with it. But compositions is very important in your storytelling. Where do you put the person? Where do you put the subject? Patterns. Patterns. If you use a pattern like a certain color or something else, and use it 2, maybe 3 times, it becomes suddenly very important. If it's just one time, is it an accident or not? But if you use it 3 times, it's starting to get an important role. Colors is obvious. Foreground, background, that means, am I here, right in front of the camera, totally in the back? Foreground, background, leading lines, that means anything that goes from the camera out, up. I talked about these things in earlier lessons, so you can always look at the history of my lessons. Negative space, you know, I'm somewhere, but I have a lot of space next to me in the photo. Unused space, for example, that can tell a story. Contrast, the dark and the light and everything. But the story can also be more clear when using, as I said, dark and light, poor and rich, high and low, movement and standing still, very strong, death and life, old and new. Well, there's a whole series of these two word combinations. But what I want to say is the contrast is a strong storytelling tool. So here's, for example, Anisette and Cuerda. Look them up on Instagram. You may like them, you may not like them, but they're very good in a couple of these rules. For example, patterns. They use patterns as a part of their photography. They use colors. They use negative space. So you see the lady with the umbrella and the sea. There's a lot of negative space around her. The colors, the contrast, the man on the right bottom, he has like a king's crown, but he has a dark suit, so that's contrast. So they use a lot of these rules. At a certain moment, you have to forget these rules because it's not about the rules. It's about how you use them and how it makes your photo worthwhile. My question is, always ask yourself, what do you like to make? That's important. That's where your passion starts, your intention. What do you love to do? That's your biggest source that can charge your battery and that can get you behind kind of obstacle points. And especially knowing that everything is a story. Don't compare your own story with the stuff on Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever. Look at your own story, because if people can relate to your story, it works much better than when it's some kind of far off science fiction story and there is no life in there, no experiences. Okay, what do I want to communicate or discover? That's also a good question to ask yourself, because you can do it prepared. Okay, I have a certain experience I want to bring into my photo. But you can also say, okay, let's dive in and see what I do on the spot. Just like jamming in a band. You don't know what you're going to do. You hit a few chords and a few rhythms, and then you start making something new. Okay, here are some examples from photographers. These are the examples that are coming up, and they have to do with kind of documentary style, raw, visual storytelling, information giving, or truth revealing, or honest, or uncensored, censored. So this is from Sandra Stockmans. It's just, she uses a lot of negative space, but in both corners, these two elements, they tell a whole story about it. For some people, for some parents, very recognizable, beautiful, beautiful photo, and nothing big fancy. It's just out of their life. Another one, beautiful. It's made on a cell phone. Becoming really, really good. Leslie Kershaw. You see, it's just daddy with the baby, kiddo, but the light and the contrast is beautiful. It's amazing. Okay, this one is from Erin Griffith from Canada. It's a prize in the routine category of the DFA. Just simple, out of their life. But you know, if you look at it and if you take that moment out of time, click, it has so much value to it. Andrea Newdorf, also from Canada, beautiful photo about a situation in a house. You can give a different interpretation. If you're a parent, you would probably say, whatever. But if you're a kid, maybe you would say, you know, there are different interpretations possible. And that's what's making the story rich. This one is from, okay, Mr. Bunch. Oh, Robin Bunch, yeah, from the United States. Also a cell phone photo. But if you look at it, you know there's a lot going on there. And probably recognizable. Beautiful photo by Carly Gravel from France. Especially the timing, you know, the swings right in the right time, so you see the rest of the parents and the baby, and there's some movement in it, and yeah, it's great. And leading lines, great spot. Okay, short recap. Life is a gigantic story. Tom, camera, five Canadian dollars. You think, okay, I can buy a cup of coffee of that. What you can do, for example, is fantasize about who had this money in his hands or in his pocket, and where has it been. It's a long story, probably. Maybe 40 people has had this dollar bill. Maybe 5. Maybe just 2. Somebody held it for a very long time in their kitchen closet. Who had it? Where has it been? Was it pulled out of the cash machine in Collingwood, and then somebody took it and it went to Toronto, maybe Ottawa, maybe accidentally to the Caribbean when they went on holiday? You don't know. But imagine you make a photo series about this bill, and you follow the bill from the time it comes from the cash machine. Okay, you can of course not invade everybody's privacy and everything, but you can kind of stage it and play it around. You get a very interesting series of images. So that's why I'm saying life is one gigantic story. It's just what you pick, and then you look at it from a distance. Okay, you are unique, and thus you have lots of stories to tell. Passion, experience, embellish, techniques, angles, these are very important parts that you can use. Don't forget, you can watch this video later on and maybe write it down or whatever. Journalism, documentary, fantasy, art, and your own style. There are many different ways to use your expression. We also talked about raw and be prepared. So on the spot, just like a jam session in a band, just go for it and see what happens. And be really prepared and do a photo shoot in your controlled way. Do you want to have a single photo? Everything has to be in that one photo, or do you want to have a series of that subject? And using the techniques and contrast. These are all parts that I try to tell you that you can use for your photography story. Okay. One story can be told in many different ways. So let's say we're 5 people in a room, 5 photographers, and somebody comes in with a paper and gives us all a paper with one word on it. Let's say, take the dollar bill. You can give everybody the assignment, make one photo about this dollar bill, and they make them all different. Everybody makes them different. So that's what I mean. It can be told in many different ways. If you like to go deeper into storytelling, let us know, because there's more to be told about storytelling and we can go deeper into it. But let us know. We can always see we can make more episodes about this subject. I would love to. Okay, here are 2 assignments for you if you are in lockdown and you want to do something. So if you are inspired and you think like, heck yeah, I want to do that. Okay, make 25 photos of your house in lockdown from early morning to late night and inside only. Choose one photo that represents this experience of lockdown the most. And I will tell you, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, you look at that photo and say, wow, that was just the weirdest time of my life. Or maybe the most difficult time. Or a time where you did something, learned something, maybe photography, and you went from 0 to another level. So, okay, assignment number 2. If you're inspired, make 25 photos of your view from your lockdown place. So let's say if your window is just a stone wall from the neighbor's house, you might think it's totally boring, but I challenge you. Maybe different day, lights, maybe different weather sorts, whatever. It might bring you something more than you expect. But you can also choose to take the front window and see what happens. Whether people passing by, the different lights, clouds, maybe, I don't know, maybe somebody coming home. You never know. It's really, really a story on a minimal scale. But if you put attention to that, you will see, you will have one photo that represents the lockdown. And if you see that later on, you think like, wow, very interesting. Okay, you can share your photos with your friends. You can also share it. You don't have to share it, but share it with your friends and keep it for, especially put it on a hard drive and make sure you keep it for the next 10, 20 years. Okay, here we go, another slide. Okay, from my own experience, I've always used storytelling in my photography. I think it's a brilliant thing to have. It helped me to see things better, understand things better, and express myself in ways that I thought were not possible before. But only because I tried it, I failed many times, and I did it. So don't keep a concept in your mind forever. Just do it. Just make something. You can always do it again with the experience that you have, and you'll make maybe a better photo. But don't keep the concept constant in my mind, like, oh, maybe I should. No, just do it. Keep it simple. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's a learning curve. Well, I just hope that you can find your niche in there too. Okay. Tom, this is ground control. Questions? Are there any questions? Because we're coming to the end of this storytelling.
Yeah, for sure. I have. There was one question, and you kind of touched upon it, but maybe you can go a little bit more into it. Um, Stories about food. You know, how do you develop more of a story about food?
Okay. You have to look at what do you like about food, for example? Um, I think food is just amazing. It's beautiful. It's delicious. It's uh, incredible, diverse, unbelievably diverse. What we like about food is, of course, the taste and the kind of the sensual experiences. So why don't you try to make food look as if you want to eat it right now? Or take the beauty aspect of it. Like, for example, what you saw there, that's kind of my style. I like dark and put something in the spot. It has a bit of an old master style. Use your own love for food as your subject. If you have to make photos of food that you don't like, you have to really put yourself over the obstacle. Try to keep what you like about it, or the beauty, or maybe how it's served on a dish, or maybe the preparing of it itself. They're all, if you dive into one aspect, you will see that's a whole story on itself. But you are the binding factor, the way you look at it, the way you kind of experience it, the way you see it. So that's kind of my recommendation. All right, Tom?
That's perfect. There's another question. It's kind of similar, but what about jewelry? How could you find a story in terms of jewelry?
Okay. Jewelry, I haven't done much with it because it's small and incredibly beautiful on a very small scale. You have to look for a lot of beautiful light coming on it. That you have to make some um, that it comes away from the background. That the beauty of it comes forward. One of the things that is, and it's maybe obvious, but it's the way how you do it, is to put jewelry either on the body, the hands, the ring, the neck, whatever. That gives an incredible background and functionality for jewelry. The other thing what you, for example, can do is um, put it on something that is the opposite. For example, you have a beautiful ruby in a ring or whatever, and you lay it down on a rough stone. Then you have a contrast. The stone is the background, is the rough, earthly visual, and then you put this beautiful ruby on there, or an emerald or whatever. You make use the contrast, and then you can also use, for example, the way you light it. Don't put hard light on it, but make sure you put light on it from one side and a little bit from the other side, and go with your hand, because you're focused only on a small, very small area. You're not focused on the first one. You just play with your hand or a piece of carton to see that some partly shadow, partly light, it comes forward. I once had, no, twice had lessons from somebody who makes photos of wine bottles for the LCBO, and he did an incredible job. But it was a lot of work, because he used all kind of concepted lights and different shots over each other. And in professional jewelry, you probably need to make a couple of shots to get the focus right. You do focus stacking. That means you do one shot here, then there, then there, then there, and then you put it together, and then the ring is totally sharp. You will see it if you put it your lens on macro. But it takes a lot of time. You need to be very precise and take time, but put your love in there. Okay, good question, Tom.
Yes. So there's another couple of questions, but we can maybe combine them, and I think that's all we'll have time for. But the someone's asking about flower photography, so on the exterior side, and then there's another question about destination tourism storytelling. So those are the last couple topics there.
Yeah. So the flower, let me get a quick example here, just a second. So I made a photo of flowers that I got from a local farm here. It's really a matter of playing with light, because you already love the flowers, but it's the way the light falls on it. And personally, I love the contrast, but that's not necessary. And the way you arrange it and your view on the camera, maybe a little bit lower or higher or whatever, or close up or further away. But try to think of it, how can I show it the most beautiful way, if that's what you want. So you already have a subject that is amazing, the flowers. There's a lot of beauty in it, so you can play endlessly with it. But light is very important. And the other question was tourism, right?
Yes, destination tourism.
Yeah, destination tourism. When I travel, I see things for the first time. Everything is new. So you see way more than you do when you are in your routine, yeah, going from home to work, shopping, maybe somewhere else. And at a certain moment, you don't see it anymore. You just follow the stream. When you go travel, use your curiosity, the newness, the excitement that you have, and shoot at that right moment. So the moment you stepped out of bus or the train or whatever, just keep on shooting what you see first, because what you see first is different than when another person sees. So when you step out of a plane in the Caribbean, you see maybe the blue water, but maybe you see the people, maybe you see the way the building is, maybe you see the tarmac, maybe you see whatever. So your specific point of view when you're traveling or tourism is unique. If you don't forget that and you make use of it, you just shoot in the moments that are just instantly right there. And then later on, you make selections. And maybe 50% of the photos, you think like, oh, whatever. But from the other 50%, 30% is really good. And 10% is just wow, it's completely wow. So I use the inspiration and excitement through your camera as soon as you feel it. That's my advice. Good question, by the way. Tom.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, that's it in terms of the questions and in our program. So yeah, I'll send it back to you. You can wrap us up.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for watching. It is a great pleasure to do this. Stories are dear to my heart, and so they're probably also dear to your heart. If you look at them through the camera, you have a new angle and a new way of seeing. For next session with me, long exposure photography, February 11, from 11 to 12. And you see the word hello, and that's exactly what you can make with long exposure photography. I will cover up a couple of different things. It's a very, very different way of storytelling also. So hopefully I will see you again. Stay safe and enjoy photography. Bye-bye. See you next time.